Thank you, Arjun, for those very generous words of introduction. First of all, let me thank you for giving me the honor of being here today to deliver the first Rai Bahadur MS Oberoi Memorial Lecture. I'm delighted to see in the audience so many friends with whom I have had association of various kinds over the last several decades. I must acknowledge here the presence of Bachi Karkaria, who has done tremendous service in bringing together details of the Rai Bahadur's life, which, but for her biography, would not have been known to many of us. I'm delighted to see the redoubtable SS here, without whom the story of the Oberoi management is never complete. I have many fond memories of our working together on the board of the hotel for a few years. There are, of course, several other good friends in the audience. I recognize their presence with happiness and gratitude. I've been spending some time out of my 24-hour schedule in the day in reading and writing. And I was telling Arjun, I have not done as much reading and writing in my whole life as I've done in the last 5 or 6 years. And I've been asked repeatedly to put together my life story, which I'm most reluctant to do, for the simple reason that I'm at heart a very private person, but who has had a very public profile. So I want to keep some of the private spaces only reserved for myself. But I have pondered over that possibility, and one of the things I'm thinking about is not to write an ordinary kind of a memoir, but some kind of storytelling and conveying messages through that storytelling. I don't know whether I will be able to do it or not, but I will try. And I'm going to try that today. I think there's a wealth of information about the Rai Bahadur, very precisely encased in the short film, which gives us an idea of the man he was, the leader of people that he was, and the family man that he was. But what I do want to convey today is the fact that we all discover the meaning of life, the meaning of relationships, in fact, the meaning of truth in the images of our own experiences in life. No amount of description of a person or a personality can be a substitute for your own understanding of the person. About the Rai Bahadur, I can say that I have not met him on several occasions or for a long time. But the only 2 or 3 times I met him, he left an indelible imprint on my mind and on my heart. And here's a story I must recount on how I met him and how I knew of him. I spent a few years of my early childhood in Chandigarh, where my father was the Speaker of the Undivided Punjab Assembly and then the Minister for several years in Undivided Punjab. That was the time when Shimla was still the summer capital of Punjab. And that was the time when the Cecil Hotel used to function as the MLA's hostel for the MLAs of the Undivided Punjab. I've heard stories about that hotel. 5 rupees a day, I think, used to be the rent, which was charged from the MLAs. And my mother often told me that she and also my father enjoyed being there during the summer when the assembly used to meet in Shimla. From those conversations, as a young child, I gathered impressions about the personality of Rai Bahadur, who took over Cecil and how he turned it around and how he fought his various battles. I'm not going to recount those are in Bachi's book. So those were my early impressions about a person who owned hotels in Shimla, where as a child I used to go to for summer vacations. Then many years thereafter, after I had settled as a lawyer in Delhi, there was a case which pertained to the adjacent land's lease in favor of the Oberoi Hotel, which was subsequently terminated by the Delhi Tourism and Development Corporation. I was not the lawyer for the Oberois. I was then the lawyer for the Delhi Tourism Development Corporation, and a case for opinion was sent to me regarding the legality of the termination of the land lease. It was sent to me by DTDH, who had cancelled it, and the Oberois had challenged that termination. The matter was referred to me for opinion as to whether the termination was indeed lawful or not. I looked at the papers. The client was DTDC, and normally lawyers do try and find a way to help the clients, which is their duty, and indeed that duty must be performed. I looked at the matter and I realized that there was a fundamental error in the termination of the lease because no notice was given to the Oberois before it was terminated. Now, if there is one principle of law which has been celebrated for centuries in all civil law jurisdictions, is the principle of audi alteram partem, which means that that a person has a right to be heard as an essential principle of natural justice before any adverse action is taken against an institution or a company or a person. And that principle had been breached by DTDC. I agonized over it because I was not supposed to be giving a contrary opinion to my client, but I could not persuade myself to the view that the termination was valid. The termination was indeed not valid in my view. I could be wrong, I could be right. So I was asked to give that opinion in writing. And I told the then managing director, who was also my friend, I said, do you really want me to give it to you in writing? Because this is what I'm going to say. It is better you withdraw the brief from me and get a better opinion from somebody else. He said, no, but do give us your opinion in writing. And I gave that opinion in writing. That was an opinion obviously favorable to the Oberois. Mr. B.K. Oberoi got hold of that opinion, and he rang me up to say that he wanted to see me. So I was very honored that Mr. Oberoi would come all the way to see me. I was a young lawyer at that time, struggling to make my mark. So I invited him to our office in Friends Colony. He came there. And I still remember that I made him climb the stairs of my basement office twice, which I now regret, but at that time, it seemed it was not so much of a case because he was shown the way to our seating area, which was actually in our basement, which had just been redone up, and it was a nice kind of a place to be in at that time. But I used to somehow sit on the first floor. So Mr. Oberoi was seated down, and when I was told that he's arrived, I said, please bring him up, and somebody from my office brought him up. He was not pleased. I could see it from his face, but he sat down. He sat down, and I realized that maybe I should have gone down to see him, but anyway, that was done. So he said, I've come to convey our appreciation for your very forthright opinion, and to convey our gratitude. I said, Mr. Oberoi, you didn't have to take the trouble. I wrote what I thought was only fair, but I'm very grateful that you showed me that gesture. And then we had tea and coffee, and then something happened, and he said, I said I've visited your hotel and I visited quite often, and I'm very happy at what you have done with the Belvedere. And he said, "Oh, are you a member of Belvedere?" I said, "No, I'm not a member of Belvedere." It was at that time also very expensive. And he said, no, you must become a member of Belvedere. I will invite you to become a member of the Belvedere. And lo and behold, I was invited to be a member of Belvedere. But during that meeting, I told him that I would like to call on the Rai Bahadur. And he said, he's now semi-retired. I look after things. Is there anything you want? I'll be quite happy to help. I said, no, I just want to pay my respects to the Rai Bahadur because I've heard so much about him during my growing up years. So a meeting was arranged for me to meet with the Rai Bahadur at the farm. I reached at the appointed time, and of course the Rai Bahadur had been briefed by Bikiji and about my opinion, and he knew everything as he was accustomed to getting everything on his fingertips before he met anyone. That was the Rai Bahadur I knew. So I landed, and he treated me with so much affection, as a fatherly figure would. He was at that time plus 90. And in a few minutes, we sat down, and the bearer came with his normal high tea. So there were patties, there was cakes, and there was chicken patty. I remember various pastries. And he took reasonably good helpings of pastries and put them in his plate. And he said, "But आप कुछ क्यों नहीं खा रहे हैं?" मैं कहा, "नहीं, मैं लूँगा जी, मैं लेता हूँ." And I am a light eater. And he relished his patties, he relished his pastries, and he insisted that I have at least one of each. With great difficulty I did have, but I had. So then what I noticed was remarkable. On another tray, a huge set of letters was brought to him. And there was an opener. And those letters, some were opened, some he was opening. And he told me, he said, "These are the letters of our customers, which I receive. And I read them every single day, all the letters that come." I said, "But is it necessary for you to read all those letters? You have such a large staff and a very efficient staff." He said, "No. Unless I know what the people are thinking about it, I will not be able to lead from the front. So that," he said, "is my most important job. I can miss everything else, but I do not miss a customer feedback." So that was the Rai Bahadur I knew at that time. There's another thing which I have not forgotten. In the undivided Punjab, and of course since he had been titled as the Rai Bahadur, so that tradition came, I think, from the British. There's a system in government that whenever there is an official function, what they term as, now they call them VIPs, but at that time they used to term them as important dignitaries of the area. So whenever the governor would have an at home, the Rai Bahadur was invariably invited. And that was a mark of recognition by the then government of Punjab for his contribution to the hotel industry in Shimla and in that area. And I know that because my father, as the speaker and the minister, and the Rai Bahadur was more or less seated next to each other all the time, and they knew each other well in that capacity. And then, of course, the Gyan Singh Rarewala connection, of which I was reminded when I glanced through Bachchi's book. Gyan Singh Rarewala was a gentleman politician in those days of undivided Punjab. He was a minister, very, very well-regarded family, a very well-regarded man. And my father, and a great friend of my father's. In fact, my father used to support his claim to the chief ministership because after a couple of years, only a Sikh had to be the chief minister. So my father would, amongst all the other candidates, support him just because he was a gentleman, along with one or two other such politicians. So the name and the connections were ingrained in my mind from that time. And then later, when I joined the profession, my then senior, Mr. T.N. Sethi, a man who I respect like a father figure, he was also a very good friend of my father's from Lahore. And when I took to practice, I was asked to be his pupil for a while. He was one of the lawyers in the team when the litigation between Imperial and the Oberois was going on. But that litigation had ended just 1 or 2 years before I joined the bar. And my senior told me a story, which I did not know, which now Bachchi confirms in her book. And I found that remarkable, very, very unusual. In these days and times when for a small penny you would fight till the end, till the Supreme Court, Mr. Oberoi, the Rai Bahadur, refused to enter the witness box to give his evidence, which was critical to the case. And my senior told me that that was one reason we lost the case, because the Rai Bahadur said, I will not enter the witness box. So my senior told him that if you don't enter the witness box, then the case of the other side will be taken at its face. He said, but you are asking me to say something in my defense which I believe is not wholly accurate. He did not want to go into the witness box, either to perjure himself or to say something which was not inaccurate. And the lawyers insisted. And the lawyer said, but this is critical. So he said, what will happen if I don't go? He said, you will lose the case. He said, what will happen if I lose the case? He said, you will lose the Imperial Hotel. He said, is that all? He said, yes. He said, I'm not going. That was the man. He refused to perjure himself. He refused to go in the witness box to say something which he didn't believe was the whole truth. Because he did later admit that there were violations of the terms of the license, which she has brought out in her book now. But look at the character of that man. At that time, the book was not there. So he had the courage and the conviction to sacrifice for what he believed to be right. Of course, you've heard the story of his early foray into hotels, the Cecil, the Fletty, the Clark's. I've stayed in Clark's for many, many days in the earlier years. Clark's used to be next to the Ravenswood guest house. That used to be the circuit house of the Punjab government. And it was almost adjoining. So at that time, Clark's was the main hotel for everybody. And everyone associated that with the Rai Bahadur. It was synonymous. It became synonymous. It was not synonymous so much with Mr. Clark's as it was with the name of the Rai Bahadur. And then, on 1 or 2 occasions, when I reconnected with him, he, at that time, was not keeping good health, but he never forgot a face or a name. So I think the greatest tribute that you can pay to the Rai Bahadur was his belief in the people, his commitment to building relationships, something that I firmly believe in myself, which I have learned from my parents and from my stint in politics and in the profession, that the greatest wealth that anyone can have at any point of time is the wealth of relationships, and that is what defined the Rai Bahadur. If I were to ask to summarize in one sentence the greatest qualities of the Rai Bahadur, I would say his ability to spot talent, his ability to honor talent, his ability to forge relationships, and his permanent commitment to ensuring that the relationship is sustained and continues. And I can tell you, I have learned in life, you cannot have friendships, you cannot sustain relationships without the willingness to pay the price for those. Everything has a price. Relationships have to be nurtured. And that nurturing is a function at most times of sacrifice on your part. Sometimes You have to choose to forgive, sometimes you have to choose to overlook, sometimes you have to choose to be magnanimous. And without magnanimity, and that was the quality of the Rai Bahadur, magnanimity, in one word. He was magnanimous. And before I carry this conversation further, I would like to say that his perseverance, his tenacity, and although in a commercial context, but the nobility of his purpose, which was to give the best to his customers and to go to the extremes to make sure that excellence was not only claimed but achieved. Now, no tribute to the Rai Bahadur can ever be complete without a reference to his legacy. A legacy ably carried forward by Bikiji and now by Arjun and Vikram. I have spent more time with Bikiji than I spent with the Rai Bahadur, and I have spent more time with Arjun and Vikram than I spent with Bikiji. So, in 2002, when I was elected to the Rajya Sabha for the first time, at that time I was still practicing as a lawyer and I was not a minister, I received a call from Bikiji requesting me to join the board of EIH. I was of course flattered, very honored, but I told him that I'm not so sure that I can contribute to the board. And I was a bit diffident because I had just been returned to the Rajya Sabha and I did not want to have any conflict of interest. And he said, you don't have to worry on that score. We do no business with government. We have no financial debts from the government. And we are absolutely private and there will never be a case of conflict. He said, this is my assurance to you. I was indeed very happy to accept that appointment. And thereafter, we spent several hours discussing matters on the board, and his grasp of the minutest detail of his business was absolutely remarkable. We all thought we had an eminent board. We all thought we were just sitting and wasting our time. He knew it all. And there was not a question that we raised which he could not answer off the cuff. He knew it all. And during the course of those conversations, he told me something which I think is a follow-up from the legacy that he inherited from the Rai Bahadur. He said, Ashwani ji, if you really ask us, compared to our other bigger rivals, our only claim to glory is our people. Our real asset is our people. And I see that asset sitting here right now. You know, since 64, so many batches trained in hotel management were turned out who became leaders of the hotel industry and who have now come here to pay obeisance to those who mentored them. I'm deeply grateful that you are all here, and I think this is the most befitting tribute to the Rai Bahadur and to the Oberoi family. And then he told me another thing. He said, you know, sometimes a very heavy financial price has to be paid in quest of excellence. And I saw that with my own eyes. It was not only his statement that I'm believing. I saw it happen. When the Trident was being made in Gurgaon, he invited me to have a cup of tea. We had to meet, so he said, if it is not too much of a bother, will you be able to make it to Trident? I'll send the car. I said, no, don't worry, I'll come to the Trident. So I went to the Trident. Trident was almost complete. A soft opening had taken place, but a few things remained. So he said, let me give you a round of the hotel. So he took me by my arm, and with his general managers walking behind him, we walked. And he walked me from the foyer to the swimming pool, and then of course to the rooms around the swimming pool. And as he was walking, he was looking down. And we were also walking with him, and suddenly he stopped. And everybody stopped. He turned around, asked his general manager, he said, "Do you have a measuring tape?" He said, "No, sir, but I'll get it." He said, "Please get it." So we waited. In about 5 minutes, the tape came. He said, "Please go down and measure the distance between the end of this tile and the adjoining tile. There is something not right. This is incongruous." And the measurement was taken. There was indeed a difference of maybe a millimeter, this much difference in the tiling. He said, "It's not looking right." So the floor had been laid. It was a very expensive marble. It was laid. He told the general manager, "Have it corrected." He said, "But sir, the whole floor will have to be broken." He said, "Break it." He said, "Break it." And it actually happened. Nobody would have been able to see that. So that was Mr. B.K. Oberoi, his quest for excellence. And I remember once I visited Belvedere, and as you enter on the left-hand side, there was a chair with very, very deep blue, which we call Firozi in Hindi, and somehow to me it looked out of place, that color. It looked very bright or something. So I asked the manager, I said, "Is this color going with the marble and with the color of the walls?" He said, "No, sir, but this is the personal choice of Mr. B.K. Oberoi, and nothing can be done about it." At some point of time, I remember, I saw him and I said, "B.K. ji, that chair, that color is very nice, very bright," I told him. I said, "I'm told you chose it." He said, "Yes, I chose it because I needed to brighten that place up." So that was, that was him. He would, even in the choice of the color of the texture of one covering of a chair, he would go to that detail. Now that doesn't come easily. And as Bachi said that he told her that, "Give me one person from a good background for 3 years and I will make him into a first-class hotelier." He said, all you need is a sense of taste and a sense of elegance. And you see that in the way very handsome Arjun and Vikram dress, from the tie to the shoe. These are all cultivated tastes, but it doesn't come with money alone. I can assure you, taste has nothing to do with money. So the Oberoi legacy is about elegance. It is about perseverance. It is about taste. It is about relationships. It's about nurturing. It's about valuing. It's about bonding. In one of my articles on leadership, which I've just finished writing, it is of course in a political context, but it applies to leaders in all fields, that you cannot bind if you cannot bond. A leader who cannot bond with people cannot bind his people. And that's true for business, it's true for politics, it's true for the professions, it is true for social organizations, large corporations, and so forth and so on. So the tribute that I'm here to pay, which I have just delivered in the form of a story, is a tribute that comes from the deepest recesses of my heart. I'm not given to accepting very many public functions of this kind, because I believe that, you say the same thing over and over again, but when Arjun very graciously asked me to be here in your midst today, I was supposed to be traveling actually to Europe yesterday. On the 8th. I was to travel on the 8th, and he said this is on the 17th, so I postponed that. Because the least I could do in return for the deep sense of gratitude that I feel for the affection that I have received from the Rai Bahadur and Bikiji and Arjun and Vikram, I thought I should be here. I'm not a great biographer of the Oberois as Bachi is, and I know that since she is here and since she is going to be speaking here along with my very distinguished friend, Ambassador Arun Singh, for whom I have the greatest regard. He was one of our most outstanding ambassadors, and I still remember my visit to Israel when he was our ambassador to Israel. Every person, from the top people in the government to the top business people, were eating out of his hands. Such was his standing in Israel and later in the United States. But because Bachi and Arunji and Admiral Chopra are here, very distinguished in his own right, the Admiral has been our Commander-in-Chief of the Navy, so Arjun and Vikram have put together a galaxy of leaders in their own right to speak about another leader of eminence in the hotel industry, not only in India but in the world. So with these words, I thank you once again for asking me to be here. And Sudhir, thank you very much. This global hospitality conclave which you are heading, in a way itself is a tribute to the ability of the Rai Bahadur and BKG to mentor such excellent business managers, hotel managers, and hotel owners. Thank you very much, one and all. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Ashwani ji. I think that was such a heartful and ode that you've given to Rai Bahadur Mohan Singh Oberoi, and so many lessons, that you've spoken about: perseverance, integrity, relation, people, and his lovely heart of magnanimity. I think he was truly the man and the maker of India's very own premium brand of hospitality, the Oberoi Group. Indeed, he has created a legacy for posterity, and that too with the spirit of never accepting anything but that is second best. So good morning once again, ladies and